and also hope that you are having a good day so far. So, today we will be doing our grade 6 English lesson on commas. So, we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on commas. And in our previous lesson, we also did commas, but we did commas with series, dates, and places, right? So that is the lesson that we did on commas. So now today is going to be a continuation of commas. It's a continuation of commas where we're going to be focusing on quite a few other lessons. But before we do so, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. And once you've logged into aplusstudents.ca, we're going to log in with our username as well as our password. So you're going to log into aplusstudents.ca with your username and password. Once you selected your username and password, you're going to then go on to selecting the subject of language arts. So we're doing language art. And then you choose grade 6. And then you're going to scroll down up until you get to the chapter of commas. Commas, because that is what we are busy with now, commas. All right. So once we are in our chapter and our lessons on commas, right? So commas. We're going to focus on a few lessons. So the lessons that we're going to be focusing on is commas with compound and complex sentences, commas with direct addresses, introductory words, interjections, and interrupts. And we are also going to be focusing on commas with coordinate adjectives. With coordinate adjectives. So that is going to be our focus lessons for today. All right. So we use commas to separate 3 or more items in a series, right? And that is what the commas where we can separate series, dates, and places, right? And after each, and we put a comma after each item in the list except the last one, right? So that is our previous lesson that we did. But now we are doing compound sentences and complex sentences. In a compound sentence, so in a compound sentence, we use a comma before the coordinate conjunction. So before the coordinate conjunction that joins the two independent clauses, right? And examples of coordinating conjunctions are and, or, but, and so. That is the examples of coordinating conjunctions. And remember, we join the two independent clauses with the coordinating conjunctions, which are and, or, but, and so. We saw a flash of lightning, and seconds later, we heard a rumble of thunder. So, as you can see, here we have our first, independent clause, and there we have our second independent clause. And it is joined by a coordinating conjunction as well as the comma over there, right? And then we also have our comma, and that is an example of coordinating or compound sentences. Now, a complex sentence, right? A complex sentence, or in a complex sentence, a dependent clause comes before an independent clause. So the dependent clause, it comes before an independent clause. And we use a comma after the dependent clause. So within a complex sentence, right, if a dependent clause comes before an independent clause, right, then we use a comma after the dependent clause. But if a dependent clause is one that starts with a subordinating conjunction, such as after, although, as, before, because, if, since, unless, until, when, or while. So we basically use our comma to join those sentences when it comes to compound sentences as well as complex sentences. All right, let's go to our tutorial classes, which is aplusstudents.ca. All right. So we said in a compound sentence, right, we use a comma before the coordinating conjunction that joins the two independent clauses. And examples of coordinating conjunctions are and, or, but, and so, right? And then in a complex sentence, if a dependent clause comes before an independent clause, we use a comma after the dependent clause. And a dependent clause is one that starts with a subordinating conjunction. All right, so now we're going to look at this text. We need to correct the text by inserting one comma. We need to insert a comma within that text. Shall I pick up a birthday cake at the grocery store, or would you like to try to make one ourselves? So, shall I pick up a birthday cake at the grocery store, or would you like to try making one ourselves? We need to select or basically add a comma. So if we add the comma, then we're going to add the comma by or. So here it says that in a compound sentence we use a commas before the conjunction. So before the conjunction. So we put it before the conjunction. So which means that we put it here. So shall I pick up a birthday cake at the grocery store, or would you like to try making one ourselves? So we put our comma there, which is before the coordinating conjunction, because this is a compound sentence. We need to insert one comma. Since Liverpool, England is the birthplace of the Beatles, the city offers a tour that includes a visit to childhood home Paul McCartney. We need to choose where our comma goes. And we put our comma over there. Of the Beatles, comma, this city offers a tour that includes. So we're going to say, since Liverpool, England is the birthplace of the Beatles, comma, the city offers a tour that includes visit to the childhood home of Paul McCartney. So we put the commas there by the Beatles. Um, we already choose. So most executives are going to be late. So let's reschedule this meeting for tomorrow. So most of the executives are going to be late. So let's reschedule this meeting for tomorrow. So where do we add our comma? We need to add our comma. Usually before a conjunction, subordinating conjunction, as well as the coordinating conjunction. So in this case, it says most of the executives are going to be late. So let's reschedule this meeting for tomorrow. So in this case, it is the coordinating conjunction. This is a compound sentence, right? So we put the comma before so. So those comma comes before so. Because remember we said that a comma comes before the coordinating conjunction, which is and, or, but, and so. All right, so once again, right, when it comes to a compound and complex sentence, right, in a complex sentence, in a compound sentence, we use a comma before the coordinating conjunction that joins two independent clauses, right? And our coordinating conjunctions are and, or, but, and so, right? That is our conjunction. Then, in a complex sentence, if a dependent clause comes before an independent clause, then we use a comma after the dependent clause, right? And a dependent clause is the one that starts with the subordinating conjunction. So the dependent clause starts with a subordinating conjunction. And remember, when it comes to a dependent clause, right? A dependent clause cannot stand on its own, right? It needs an independent clause in order for it to join a sentence or to be joined in the sentence. So our subordinating conjunctions are after, although, as, because, before, if, since, unless, until, when, or while. That is our subordinating conjunction. Remember, we have subordinating conjunctions and then we have coordinating conjunctions, right? All right, so let's go to our test on commas with compound and complex sentences. So we are now going to correct the text by inserting one comma. We're going to correct the text by inserting one comma. All right. Because Sir George Everest was the first to record its location and height, Mount Everest was named for him in 1865. And the other one is because Sir George Everest was the first to record its location and height, Mount Everest was named for him in 1865. So we now need to correct the text by inserting one comma. So of course the comma is already put at its specific place. We just need to choose the correct sentence. So either the first one that says because Sir George Everest was the first to record its location and height, Mount Everest was named for him in 1865, or because Sir George Everest was one of the first to record its location and height, Mount Everest was named for him. All right, so if we choose the correct one, right? Let's choose the first one. And there we have the first one. Remember, that was a complex sentence, right? And it started with a subordinating conjunction. Unless we play miniature golf, I'll probably stay home to catch up on Michelin chores. Or unless we play miniature golf, I'll probably stay home to catch up on Michelin chores. So we need to correct the text by inserting one comma. So unless we play miniature golf, I'll probably stay home to catch up on Michelin chores. Or unless we play miniature golf, I'll probably stay home to catch up on Michelin chores. Let's choose the first one. Because there from I'll probably stay home, that is the independent clause. We can meet at the entrance to the stadium, or we can just look for each other in the bleachers, or we can meet at the entrance to the stadium, or we can just look for each other in the bleachers. This is a compound sentence. And we said a compound sentence is joined by a coordinating conjunction. And if it is joined by a coordinating conjunction, the comma needs to be in front of the coordinating conjunction, which means that we're going to go with option 2 there, stadium, or there we go. Americans toss out 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour, and approximately 1,500 bottles wind up in landfills and the ocean every second. Or Americans toss out 2.5 million plastic bottles every hour, and approximately 1,500 bottles wind up in landfills and the ocean every second. All right, so if we choose the correct one, we'll go with this one because that is a compound sentence. So that is a compound sentence. So the first one, because there was a compound sentence. All right, so now we're going to commas with direct addresses, introductory words, interjections, and interrupts. We use commas to separate the name of a person being spoken to from the rest of the sentences. So we use commas to separate the name of a person being spoken to from the rest of the sentences. And there we have an example. Thank you, Bella. And then the second one is thank you, Bella, for your help. So as you can see, there the commas are either in front or after a name, and that shows that the commas separate the name of a person being spoken to from the rest of the sentence. We also use commas after words like yes, no, wow, and many others, right? When they are followed by a complete sentence. So if it is followed by a complete sentence, then we put the comma. So, for example, yes, that sounds great, right? So, yes, that sounds great. Or no, I don't think that's a good idea. Or we can say no. So that is how we can use our commas after yes, after no, or well. We can also use a comma after a mild interjection, right? Oh, what a stunning sunset, right? So, as you can see, even with the commas, right? This is basically stuff that we use in conversation every single day, right? In conversation, we speak things, when we talk, we greet, right? We say thank you and we give someone a name, right? We mention someone's name. So at least now in the back of our head, we will be able to know that, okay, when I say thank you, pause the person's name and there's a comma, right? The same with saying yes, no, wow, right? We say the comma and we put the comma and then the rest of the complete sentences. And the same with the mild interjection. And then we also use a comma around an interrupter, which is a word, phrase, or clause that adds additional non essential information to the sentence. So we use commas around an interrupter, which is a word, a phrase, or clause that adds additional non essential information to a sentence. For example, you, of course, may have a different opinion. So the of course doesn't even belong there. So that is the non-essential additional information that was added to that sentence. So that is also where or how we can add a comma. All right, so now we're going to choose the text by inserting one comma. Yes, there was a woman who became famous, especially for surviving the sinking of the Titanic. Her name was Molly Brown. So now we need to add our commas. So now we need to add our commas. So if we add the first comma, we're going to say this: yes, there was a woman who became famous, especially for surviving the sinking of the Titanic. Her name was Molly Brown. So we had to add one comma and we put after yes. Because remember, we said that we use commas after words like yes, no, well, and many others. So, yes, there was a woman who became famous, especially for surviving the sinking of the Titanic. Her name was Molly Brown. All right, so here we also need to correct the text by inserting one comma. Oh, I did not know that Uranus has rings and is tipped on its side. So, oh, I did not know Uranus has rings and is tipped on its side. So we need to add the comma. Where can we add the comma within that sentence? So if we add a comma, right? Because they just want us to insert one comma, then we can put our comma by oh. Because words like oh yes, no, well. Those are words where we add a comma, right? And then it's followed by the complete sentence. So, oh, I didn't know Uranus has rings and is tipped on its side. So, oh, that is where we put our comma. Oh, we need to correct the text by inserting one comma. Oh no, the widespread use of antibacterials is causing resident bacteria to spread. Where can we add our one comma within our sentence? Oh no, the widespread use of antibacterials is causing resistant bacteria to spread. And if we choose where to put our comma, we can say, oh no. The same as saying, oh. Same as saying, well, yes, no. You can say, oh no, comma. The widespread use of antibacterial is causing resistant bacteria to spread. So, oh no. All right, so now we're going to our test, right, where we need to correct the text by inserting one comma. So, here's our two options. The first one says no, comma. The Empire State Building was completed under 1931, just after the Chrysler Building. Or is it no, the Empire State Building wasn't completed until 1931, just after the Chrysler Building? Is it option one or option two? There, where you see the comma specifically, do we put the comma after no or do we put the comma after until? All right, so if we choose the correct sentence, right, with its correct comma, then we're going to choose the first one because it says no, the Empire State Building wasn't completed until 1931. So after the comma. Laughter is, as they say, the best medicine. Or laughter is, as they say, the best medicine. So we need to choose the correct sentence with the comma. And if we choose the correct one, we can maybe say laughter is, as they say, the best medicine, which is the first option. All right. Here we have another one that says no, Benjamin Franklin was never president of the United States. Or no, Benjamin Franklin was never president of the United States. Do we put the comma after no, which is in option one, or do we put the comma after United in comma two? Which one is correct? And if we choose the correct one, we will say it's the first one, which is no. Benjamin Franklin was never president of the United States. So after the no, we need to select the one. We need to insert one comma. In my opinion, the witness has already answered the questions fully, Judge Tyler. Or, in my opinion, the witness has already answered the questions fully, Judge Tyler. Do we put our comma before Judge Tyler to separate the name, or we do not put a comma there at all? So, which one is correct? Option 1 or option 2? All right, so if we choose the correct one, we will choose, let's choose option 1. All right. So that is commas with direct addresses, introductory words, interjections, and interrupts. Now we're going to commas with coordinate adjectives. And coordinate adjectives are adjectives it's adjectives that describe the same noun equally. They should be separated by a comma. So we're now going to answer these two questions to check for coordinating adjectives. Does the text still sound okay when the adjective order is changed? And does the text still sound okay when and is inserted? So does the text still sound okay when the adjective order is changed? And does the text still sound okay when and is inserted? So basically, here they're saying that if the answer to both questions is yes, then the adjectives are coordinate and should be separated with commas. So you need to ask yourself these questions when it comes to either in your writing or within your scripts or drafts or so on. Coordinating adjectives. So you need to ask yourself, does the text still sound okay when the adjective order is changed? Or does the text still sound okay when and is inserted? So that is coordinate adjectives. And it's adjectives that describe the same noun equally. Describes the same noun equally. And that should only be separated by a comma. All right. It says since the overwhelmed, exhausted office manager at the insurance company couldn't balance her countless daily responsibilities, she began looking to hire an assistant. So we need to look for adjectives that are next to each other and then test whether they are coordinate adjectives. So, for example, overwhelmed and exhausted, right, are coordinate adjectives. So, overwhelmed, meaning that everything is just too much, and exhausted, right? So, you can be exhausted because everything is too much. Can be your studies, can be your work, it can be household things, right? So, everything can seem overwhelmed and exhausted. So, overwhelmed and exhausted are coordinate adjectives. So, they should be separated with a comma. So you can tell because the text still sounds okay when the adjective order is changed, as well as when and is inserted. So here we have an example: exhausted, overwhelmed office manager. Or you can say overwhelmed and exhausted office manager. So here they're saying that we need to either add a comma or we can add and to it, right? And then still both will sound the same, right? So it should, the coordinate adjectives should be next to each other. And then we need to ask ourselves questions. Will it still be the same with or without the comma? Especially if the two adjectives are next to each other. All right, so yeah, exhausted and office are not coordinate adjectives. So they should not be separated with a comma. You can tell because the text does not sound right at all when the adjective order is changed and when and is inserted. So, office exhausted manager does not sound right. Exhausted and office manager also does not sound the same. If we look at another word, another sentence, countless and daily, it's like saying countless attempts, a lot of attempts, daily attempts, right? But countless and daily, it's not a coordinate adjective. So they should not be separated with a comma. And you can tell that because the text should not sound right at all when the adjective sound is changed and when and is inserted. All right. So that is commas with coordinating conjunction, con coordinating adjectives. So we have now reached the end of our lesson and we went over different commas and we said in our previous lesson we did commas with series, dates and places. And then today we did commas with compound and complex sentences. Whereas with the compound sentence, compound sentence it's joined, two independent sentences are joined together, and then we also have the comma over there that separates the two, and the comma with the coordinating conjunction, it basically joins that two independent clauses. And then we have a compound complex sentence, which has a complex sentence which has an independent and a dependent clause, and it is also joined by a subordinating conjunction. And the subordinating conjunction usually comes in before the dependent clause. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson, grade 6 on commas. You should really have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.